Let's go to Mary now in San Diego. Hi, Mary.
Well, I have a question for you. My dog died a month ago, and I've been having a really hard time. And, it's just made me obsess over about souls
Mm-hmm.
and, if I'm going to see him again. And I can't really, I've been trying to Google research and I see so many contradictory information.
Mm-hmm.
Some are saying, that of course I'll see them in heaven or the Rainbow Bridge, which is where pets go. And then some are saying that they have souls, but they're not like human souls, so they won't exist after they die. And that's been just really hard for me to accept and in my grieving
Mm-hmm.
process. And I just wondered if really we know an answer, because I guess if no one's ever died, how would they know, right?
Yeah, that's a reasonable question. St. Paul was taken up into heaven, he says. He talks about himself in the third person. He says, I know a man who was caught up into the third heaven. And he describes how he couldn't even articulate what he saw. It was so far beyond anything that human language could describe that he just says, I has not seen nor has ear heard the things that God has prepared for those who love him. And so he himself was unable to explain the beauty and the wonders that he saw in heaven, whatever they were. I wish he could have. I'd like to know what it was. So I can say this, Mary, and I really do feel for you, and my heart goes out to you. I know that these kinds of relationships often are very powerful with pets. I can tell you this much for
Yeah.
sure. Jesus himself promised, this is Matthew chapter 5, verse 4, he said, blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. So in
Hmm.
your mourning, you can take solace and encouragement in knowing that Jesus himself promised that your feelings of mourning and wishing that you had your beloved pet with you again, that in heaven you will be comforted. Now, what does that mean exactly? We don't know. But you can look forward to knowing that whatever that reality winds up being with regard to pets,
Hmm.
that you will be absolutely blissfully happy because God doesn't do things second best. He does them the best way. And so in heaven,
Yeah.
you can hope and pray and desire these things. The Lord knows that, and there's nothing wrong with that. And just trust in his promise
Hmm.
that you will be comforted and you will be happy.
Yeah, but it's just like I just want to know if I'll see him again,
I know.
and if their souls do go to heaven or not. And if we do have souls that go to heaven, how would we recognize each other if we're
Well,
not in a
one
physical
thing,
form?
that's true. We'll be disembodied spirits. That's true. But we will be intelligible to each other and we will recognize each other. And we will, even though
Hmm.
we won't have our bodies, the soul is the form of the body. That's true, because the soul is the organizing principle and the soul is what animates the body, etc. So we are made as human beings as corporeal creatures. So we're composites, as you know. I mean, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. You are comprised of spirit and matter. And so, unlike
Hmm.
the angels who are pure spirits, they don't have bodies. They don't have heads or arms or feet. When they appear to us, it seems they appear in a way that's intelligible to us. But we as human beings are made for and with bodies. Therefore, I think we can confidently assume that in the afterlife, you will look like yourself. You will be visible to other people as a human woman. And those who know you
Hmm.
or knew you in this life and are in heaven, they'll know you in heaven. You won't be just a shadow or a shape. They will know you as you are and who you are when you're in heaven, and vice versa.
Yeah. So I know that goes for humans, but I'm just wondering, what about my dog?
Hmm.
I mean,
Well, that's a question I
it's
can't
it
answer
just
for
doesn't
you.
make sense.
Go
It
ahead.
doesn't make sense that he just ceases to exist, which is one of the articles I read on Catholic.com.
Well, I don't want to in any way make your grief more painful. So let me just say this. that there is definitely an established school of thought on this topic that says that animals don't have eternal souls because they're not rational. And to give you a little explanation, what that means is that for animals of whatever type, they have souls. There's no doubt about it. That's the life principle that is in them. It is spiritual. It is a spirit because it's not material. And that immaterial life principle that we can call a soul animates the body of the animal. And the way the lower animals are is that the soul can only do those things that are associated with the body. So a dog or a cat, etc. They eat, they have whatever emotions animals might feel, they have instinct and all the things that are proper to animals. But when the body and the soul separate and the animal dies, there's nothing that the soul can do anymore because it requires a body to do all the things that the animal soul does. So this teaching is, and it's not a dogma of the faith, and there are people who have argued endlessly over this issue. I'm just identifying what it is. This view is that because of the nature of animals, when the body and the soul separate, that is the end. There is no more animal. And this is different from human beings because you and I who have souls, we're made in the image and likeness of God, meaning that like God, we are personal beings. We have an intellect and a will. And therefore, we have reason. And our souls, unlike those of animals, can do things that don't require the body. And therefore, when the body and the soul separate in death, the soul continues eternally because it can. It doesn't need the body to survive. It's meant for the body, but it doesn't need the body to survive. So the fundamental issue here, when people are examining this question, do pets go to heaven, or animals at all, do they go to heaven? The question is there any animal left to go to heaven? So under that view, no, there isn't. But there are plenty of people who argue vociferously in some cases that yes, indeed they do, and they'll point to passages in Scripture that talk about, the lion lying down with the lamb and the child putting his hand on the adder's lair and not being harmed. And whether we understand those passages figuratively or literally, they are there in the Bible, and it does talk about animals in a certain sense, but it's still an open question. So I guess what I can say, Mary, is that even though there is a strong opinion among many theologians that no, that pets don't go to heaven, it doesn't mean you can't hope and pray and ask that the Lord should make it so. So to come back to what I was saying a minute ago from Jesus on the Sermon on the Mount, when he says, those who are mourning will be comforted, my hope is that you can really rest in that promise and know that even though in this life God has not chosen to reveal to us the answer to this question, we can only have our opinions. When you get to heaven, you will be completely blissfully happy with what the answer is. You won't get to heaven and get disappointed. You won't. Let's say you get to heaven and you find out there are no animals in heaven, or at least there are no pets in heaven. You will not be disappointed because you'll see God's plan for what it is. You'll be overjoyed. And I know it may seem impossible now, but that's what Jesus promised. You will be comforted. You will not be mourning. If you get to heaven and you find out, hey, wow, St. Thomas Aquinas was wrong. There are animals in heaven. Hey, my pet's in heaven. You're going to be blissfully happy. So either way, you win. And I hope that by resting in that, it'll bring you some consolation. I've got to take a break. Thanks, Mary. Appreciate it. Coming right back right after this.
For more of The Patrick Madrid Show, visit relevantradio.com/Patrick.